49ers General Manager John Lynch sounds off from the NFL owners' meetings in Orlando. We're going to get to everything important that he had to relay this morning. This is the San Francisco 49ers Report. I'm Chase Sr. Hope all of you out there had a fantastic weekend and your weeks are off to an even better start. Obviously, the big storyline hovering around this organization all throughout this offseason, really since the Super Bowl, the future of Brandon Aiyuk entering the final year of his deal on that fifth-year option. There's been some trade buzz out there, contract extension talks. What is the latest on the 49ers' number one wide receiver and the second-team All-Pro in 2023? If you're an Aiyuk fan, what John Lynch had to say probably makes you happy. He said that the 49ers actively talking with Aiyuk and his camp about keeping him around for a long time, discussing a contract extension. He said any reports of trade discussions out there are false, and him and the 49ers want Aiyuk to be around the San Francisco 49ers for a long time. This sounds like everything that I reported from my source at the NFL Combine earlier this month, that the 49ers want to keep Aiyuk. They envision him as being a part of the future. Aiyuk's agent is the best friend of John Lynch. John Lynch was the best man at Aiyuk's agent wedding, was his big first client coming out of college. And there is that line of communication. There's a relationship there. And the 49ers really love the player. Now, these things can change in a blink. And as I always like to say, context is very important, especially when a player like Calvin Ridley, who's older than Brandon Aiyuk, isn't as good as Brandon Aiyuk, isn't as productive as Brandon Aiyuk, flips the wide receiver market on its head, and he gets $23 million per year. But the 49ers understand how valuable Brandon Aiyuk is, a young, ascending, elite talent who's also homegrown, and he's really durable. And you think about the future of this organization, you always want to have your franchise quarterback. The 49ers believe right now that Brock Purdy is that guy. First full season as a starter, he was top 5, top 10 in multiple statistical categories. And his great play was really made possible in a lot of instances by the season that Brandon Aiyuk had. And if you envision Brock Purdy being your franchise guy, well, him and Brandon Aiyuk developed a great chemistry and a great on-field relationship with a lot of continuity. And we saw for the first time, as Kyle Shanahan is the head coach of the San Francisco 49ers, the deep ball become a part of this offense, which usually it's been missing in this run-heavy outside zone scheme. And a lot of those routes that the receivers would run and a lot of the throws that Jimmy Garoppolo would make in between the numbers, in between the hashes, and the vertical ball wasn't really a staple of this offense. But last year, Brock Purdy was number 1 in deep ball completion rate. And Brandon Aiyuk was number 2 in yards per catch in the entire National Football League. You always want to give your young franchise quarterback a stable of weapons. Brock Purdy has that with Brandon Aiyuk, Deebo Samuel, George Kittle, as well as Christian McCaffrey. This core can stay together for this year, hopefully next year, for the years to come. But Aiyuk is that young player that you want as part of this organization for a long time. He's everything that the Niners want in a cornerstone player. He's durable. He's young. They've invested in him. They saw him becoming an elite wide receiver when they took him 25 back in the 2020 NFL draft. He's gotten even better than they probably anticipated, to the point where this past year he was a second-team All-Pro. And he has earned that new contract that he's going to get, but also as part of the identity of the San Francisco 49ers, toughness, swagger, confidence, effort on every down, whether it be running routes, catching the football, picking up yards after the catch, or blocking for his teammates. Aiyuk does it all. And it's wild because some people still sleep on him. They say, well, Brandon Aiyuk isn't really all that good. The system makes him elite. Ball knowers know that Brandon Aiyuk is an elite wide receiver in this league. He's a complete wide receiver who can literally do everything. How do you look at these numbers for what he accomplished in 2023 and tell me he's not that good of a player? Yards per catch, number 2. Yards per target, number 2. Pro Football Focus wide receiver grade, right behind Tyreek Hill, number 2. EPA, number 2. And receiving yards in a run-heavy system with other really good weapons on this offense, he was number 7. And part of the reason why the Niners really like him, they want him as part of the future, and why Brandon Aiyuk is such a valued member of this team, and why I think he's going to be around for a long time, the continued development, the continued improvements. And he's still young, and frankly, I think with more targets, he can be even better. Look at the numbers just the last 2 years. And by the way, first 4 years in the NFL, his receiving numbers have gone up every single campaign. But last year, 78 grabs for more than 1,000 yards, right? This past year, less catches, but more than 300 more yards. When I talk about him being that deep ball threat, the vertical threat for this offense, that's what he is, but he literally has everything to his route tree. Brandon Aiyuk, I reported back at the NFL Combine, Niners want him. I think Aiyuk wants the Niners. I think they make a deal happen. This is why you subscribe to the channel, because when there is Niners news to talk about, we cover it right here on the show. That's a big reason why we are approaching 132,000 subscribers. Whether you love the show, you hate the show, I love you for watching, so thank you for your support. Still to come, latest Niners injury news. Why did the Niners get bopped with that penalty from the NFL? And Jed York getting full ownership. I'll touch on this really quickly here. Point number 2, there was $75,000 that the 49ers failed to report, in which they paid that money to an unknown player. That's why the Niners picked this year, got moved back. That's why they lost that 5th rounder next year. So these 2 stories still to come here on the show. First, got to tell you about Game Time, our sponsor for today's San Francisco 49ers report. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the app for free, create an account, and when you use the code NinersChat, you get $20 off your purchase. Check them out using that link down below in the comment section and in the description of this video. Game Time has deals on tickets right up to the start of the event, and even an hour after it starts. So they have really perfected last-minute tickets at the lowest price guaranteed. It's the place to find those last-minute deals. Find exclusive flash deals as well, and sponsored deals on tickets for football, basketball, baseball, concerts, comedy, theater, and more. San Francisco Giants season getting underway a little bit later this week. Golden State Warriors fighting to get into the Western Conference playoffs. You can find all of those tickets available using that code NinersChat, and you get $20 off. You want to go to a Giants game, which I think is one of the best stadiums in all of Major League Baseball. What's great about this app, you see the price points, and then the yellow, you see some of the flash deals. You simply click on one of those flash deals. You can get a vantage point from that seat. And like I said, Warriors tickets available. And when the Niners season comes around, San Francisco, you want to rock on and rock out with the faithful, you can do that at Levi's Stadium. So use Game Time. It's the only app that I use. I hate using other apps because they're difficult to use. They don't have the price points that Game Time has. And sometimes it's really hard to just simply check out and buy tickets. You don't worry about that with Game Time. Injury news to get to here. Latest on Dre Greenlaw. John Lynch saying Greenlaw is aiming to be back by week 1 of the 2024 season. But because this is an Achilles injury, because it's a complex surgery and recovery, the Niners here are going to take the cautious approach. Lynch said that Greenlaw could land on the PUP list. That is short for physically unable to perform. If that's the case, then he won't start the season week 1, and that's totally okay. That's why you signed a player like Devondre Campbell. That's why you want to see the developments from D. Winters and Jalen Graham. Because when you tear your Achilles on February 11th, expecting to come back by September is a tall task. As recent as 3 to 5 years ago, we were not talking about these types of recoveries coming off a torn Achilles. But that's the beauty of medical advancements. But still, it's an Achilles injury for a guy who's a larger dude at that linebacker spot, who relies on that quickness, physicality, and speed to really excel playing the linebacker position. And it goes without saying, Greenlaw was great this past year. Borderline All-Pro, in my opinion. Last 2 years, I think he's been a borderline All-Pro. 120 tackles, 4 PBUs, 5 TFLs. Overall Pro Football Focus grade just shy of 70. Run defense grade very good. Coverage grade awesome. And he was even better in the NFL playoffs. Had those 2 interceptions of Jordan Love, was really good in the NFC Championship game, was just incredible early in the Super Bowl. When the Niners lost him, the defense went downhill and the Chiefs started to find their groove. Greenlaw in 3 playoff games, and really it was just 2+ because he got injured so early against Kansas City. Overall PFF grade of 80.2, coverage 89.7, and when targeted, gave up a passer rating of 39.4 and 2 picks. And this Niners linebacking depth chart now, you have Dre Greenlaw, Fred Warner, Devondre Campbell as your 3 leading linebackers as of right now going into the season. If Greenlaw can't go, you'll see a lot of 2 linebacker sets with Fred Warner, Devondre Campbell. Maybe you throw Talanoa Hufanga in there. The Niners kind of made a safety into a linebacker, and Eric Reed back a few years ago. They could do that with Hufanga, as I talked about on the show on Friday. They might be looking to move him. They might be looking to move on because they're looking at starting safeties opposite of Jair Brown. D. Winters, Ezekiel Turner, Demetrius Flanagan-Fowles, the other backup linebackers on this Niners team. Elsewhere on the injury front for San Francisco, John Lynch confirming both Mooney Ward and George Kittle, both All-Pros this past year, underwent core muscle surgery. The good news here, both expected to be ready, both expected to be back for training camp once that comes around at the end of July, early August. Lastly here on the show, Jed York getting full ownership of the San Francisco 49ers. A lot of you probably didn't realize, or some of you may not have realized, because I'm not going to discredit your intelligence of this football team, that Jed York was not basically the full owner, but now he's going to be. According to the Sports Business Journal, Jed York buying sufficient equity from his mom, and that puts him fully in charge. He served as CEO of the team since 2010, so he's always had a large say, and he's always been deemed as the quote-unquote owner, but now he's going to fully run the team until he either sells or he steps down. Now, his uncle, Eddie DeBartolo, 5-0 in Super Bowls, one of the best owners in the history of all of sports. 5-0 in Super Bowls. And Jed York has failed to reach up to those levels of expectations, but since he took over in 2010, a lot of success for this team. 7 NFC Championship games in 14 years. I know a lot of you have an issue with him and Kyle Shanahan not winning the ring during their tenure. And then obviously Jim Harbaugh before that, and Jed York able to overcome some disastrous hires that he made prior to Harbaugh and head coach Kyle Shanahan. But look, when you make it to 7 NFC Championship games in 14 years, you're a well-run organization. You don't have high-level success like that in a very competitive field if you're not running a seamless business practice. Now, they could certainly be better, and that run includes 3 Super Bowl appearances. They haven't won it yet, but I'm telling you right here on the show, they're going to win a Super Bowl at some point in the next 5 years. Believe that. Give me a follow on X. Give me a follow on Instagram. Really blowing up on the social media front here. More than 12,000 followers on X, 26K on Instagram. I entered December with 3,000 followers. Appreciate all of the real ones who have supported me over there. Put a lot of short-form content and a lot of takes on the social media feeds, in addition to the long-form content right here on the show.